You remind me of my brother. I could never win against him growing up, and when I did, he'd give me some patronizing praise that made me wonder if he'd let me win. It's proof enough that you're a guile. Our whole family has it, including me. But think about this, Kip. There are a lot of problems that would go away from me if I leave that mask on your face until you're dead. You might want to think twice before you try to use a man's conscience against him. It may turn out that he doesn't have one. What's up, bookworms? I am Mike, and today we are going to be talking about the first book in Brent Weeks' Lightbringer saga titled The Black Prism. Now, there is going to be a slight format change here from my usual book review. If this is your first time finding the channel, I'll explain that all of my book reviews are spoiler heavy, but I got some feedback from constant watchers that folks have told me they want to be sold on some of these books. So I'm going to start doing a few, 5 to 10 minutes of non-spoiler talk at the beginning, and then I'll get into spoilers. Also, I do Let's Discuss segments that are spoiler-free, but all of my book reviews, even with this added later, I will be going over key points to the plot. So if you have not read Black Prism, watch until the spoilers are starting, bookmark this video, come back after you do. With that said, let's get into it with some non-spoiler thoughts up front. I am not going to sell you guys a bill of goods here. I feel like Black Prism is the best book one in a fantasy series that I have read in over a decade. And that is not hyperbole. Other than The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie, this is the most fun I have had with a book one since then. It really is that good. The magic system is probably one of the most in-depth and creative that I have ever seen. And the protagonist is so different from everything that you're used to in this genre. All of the characters are interesting. Their faults and victories, they're all well plotted. And the twists in this book literally left my jaw hanging open, wide open, more than once. Which is rather unexpected because I feel like unless you're really embedded into the fantasy community, you don't hear a lot of people bring this series up. You still hear people talk about his Night Angel trilogy more than this, which is amazing because I thought Night Angel was kind of crap. That's controversial. Well, I'll get into that eventually someday. That's why I've taken so long to read this series, though, is I started with Night Angel. Or actually, you know what? Let me bring up a friend of mine. He's a very, very big Brent Weeks fan. He was always pushing Lightbringer and Night Angel on me. So I looked at both of them. I said, okay, I'll start with Night Angel since it's shorter. It seems like it's a little more straightforward, not that complex. And it was a chore to even get through that first book. And I didn't even read books 2 or 3, and the same friend told me, he understood that wasn't my thing, but he assured me that, Weeks really improved over time and the Lightbringer series is still really amazing. And so during my continued Wheel of Time hiatus here, I am going to get back to Wheel of Time, guys. Don't worry about it. I decided I was going to do the one Lightbringer per month deal leading up to the final book this October. And am I ever glad that I did? Because fans of the series tell me, yes, book one is that good, but they only get better. And if that's the case, this series is going to be moving up my ranks really, really quickly. Before I'm done with spoiler-free talk, I do want to touch on this magic system a little bit more. I kind of ensure you that while even though it seems overwhelming at first, it'll make more sense as the book goes along. There's still things that I'm learning a whole book in, but I love it. It's all based off of the colors of the spectrum, and different colors can, cast different things, and only certain people can draft, is what they call it, drafting. Only certain people can draft certain colors, and some people can draft more than one color or even multiple colors. So, obviously the more colors that you can draft from, the more powerful you are. Think of it kind of like medieval Green Lantern Corps, where the constructs are being made. It's really, really cool, and I can't wait to see how it evolves in the remaining 4 books. And there are currently 4 books in the series released. The 5th and final installment is releasing this October. There have been a couple of delays, but you know what? For someone like me, that's coming on late. That's all good with me. When I saw that the last book was coming out, this moved up my list of something I was going to read. Brent Weeks, he's a really good follow on Twitter. He doesn't interact with people quite on the level of like a Pierce Brown or Mark Lawrence, But he seems really genuine with his fans, and that's like a moth to flame for me when it comes to supporting an author. So, okay, it's time to get into spoilers. So go ahead, bookmark this video, save it for later if you've not read Black Prism, and you really should intend to do that. Okay, starting spoilers now. Okay, so Gavin Guile. This dude is known as the Prism because he can draft all these colors. He gets a letter from a woman named Lena telling him that it's time to meet his bastard son. He was unaware this boy existed until this moment, and then he does the math in his head and realizes this child was conceived while he was betrothed to Karis Whiteoak, a member of the Black Guard. This boy, he's named Kip. He's about 16. His town's under attack by this fanatic named, I don't know if it's... In the book, it looks like it's spelled Garadul, but somebody has told me it's pronounced Haradul. I don't know, when you don't listen to the... They say in the audiobooks that he's pronounced Haradul. I don't know. But he's decided to call himself a king and has tried to establish his satrapy as an independent nation. And basically, this town that Kip is in, they're not paying their levies. So he decides to burn the whole thing down. Kip, he escapes town after seeing his mother and all of his friends killed. He eventually is saved by Gavin and Karis, who stumble upon him without even knowing that he is who he is. But after some tension between Garadul and Gavin, Kip goes with him and Karis, and after doing the math in her own head, Karis bails, realizing what's going on here, and decides to try and infiltrate Garadul's camp. But she is eventually captured. So all this time, you're slowly getting this backstory about Gavin's brother, Dazen, who is believed to be dead. But Gavin is actually keeping him prisoner underneath his current living quarters. He's been there for 16 years, ever since this, what is known as the False Prism War between these two brothers ended. And the big twist is, about 40% of this book, Gavin goes to talk to his brother in this prison, and it's revealed that the man we have thought was Gavin this whole time actually is Dazen, and he has stolen Gavin's life. He's pretending to be him this whole time. Now, this was a twist that completely floored me. I did not see this one coming at all, and if Weeks wasn't as improved of a writer as he is, it could have gotten really, really confusing, because these chapters are all in POV by character, and you have the false Gavin referring to himself as Gavin sometimes, but Dazen to himself at others. And truly, if Weeks was a bad author, this would get so convoluted that it would make the book less enjoyable. But he does a really great job with it, making it clear. So the real Gavin spends the entire book trying to get out of this prison, but certain colors are unavailable to him. Drafted, he can't draft them because he's got basically there's just like a blue hue in this room. That's all he can draft from is just blue, and that's not enough to get him out of here. So I would really have to do a separate video to explain this magic system. But putting it as simple as I can, you need these colors present to draft that color, and he can't do that in this prison. But let's talk about Kip for a minute. I love that this is bucking the usual fantasy trend for a protagonist. He isn't the usual, strapping young farm boy with good looks that all the women love and manly physique, and he never makes a mistake. No, Kip is overweight. He's a seemingly unattractive boy, and he can't do much without stumbling over his own feet. I'm sure the character arc is going to see him grow the whole series, and that's great. I just love how he is here at the beginning. I love a character arc. Look, I'm not one of those every kind of person in the world needs to be represented in our media types. No, I think that our fiction should be just fiction. There should not be any political commentary or real current world events in my media. I don't think that that's necessary in works of fiction, not by a long shot. But I love this. I mean, he's a little wise ass. But the dude has zero self-confidence and self-confidence. Talking is hard. He has zero self-confidence, and he does very little right in this book, at least for about 90% of it. Some of the other characters with POV chapters are Liv Danovis and her father Corvin. I do like both of these characters for different reasons. Both have played a pivotal role in Kip's young life. Corvin, he was the former general of Dazen, who lost the Black Prism War, so he's a little bit disgraced, and he's kind of keeping a low presence in that village that Kip was in at the beginning, kind of being a mentor to him. Then you have Liv, who Kip pretty much spent his entire youth being in love with, and she sees herself being coerced into going to the Chromaria. The Chromaria, that's like Hogwarts for young drafters in the story. But she's kind of going there to spy on and bring ruin to Gavin Guile. Little does she know that he actually is Dazen, and her father is one of the two people who knows this little secret. And it turns out it was actually Corvin's idea. So that was kind of crazy. So it makes things real tense when they meet up, and Corvin is supposed to hate Gavin, but they're finding a way to work together for the common good against Gyarados. That could all fall apart really easily. The other POV character is Commander Iron Fist. He's a leader of the Black Guard and somewhat of a early mentor to Kip, teaching him how to do the punching. And he's responsible for the safety of Gavin as he leads this upcoming conflict with Gyarados. I'm really skimming here, but this review will get close to an hour if I really get into all of the plot details. So let me put it like this. If you like witty banter, this book has it. If you like characters that grow, don't always do the good thing, this book has it. If you like politics, yeah, they're in here. But if you like battles, man, you are going to love this third act. I'd say the last 200 pages of this book are the battle with Gyarados and his forces. And the thing that really amazed me again is just how much better Weeks is writing compared to Night Angel. His prose is fantastic, and I could not put the book down, and I was never bored. This whole thing, like 600 pages, I was never bored. The resolution of the battle, it sees Kip start to really harness his power, if not, lose control of it a little bit, and he kills Gyarados in a rage. And it turns out this was planned for by his second in command, a man going by the name of Lord Omnichrome, who actually turns out to be Karis's brother. I can't remember his actual name, but Lord Omnichrome just sounds like such an 80s fantasy movie awesomeness. I got to stick with that, Lord Omnichrome. So, we have our new villain going forward. I'm going to assume he's going to be a long-term villain, or it's going to be one of Gavin or Dazen. I'll get into that a little bit later. So we got a new villain. We also have intrigue about what Kip is going to do in the future, since his mother gave him this box with a knife in it as she was dying. And he gets this knife back from Gyarados at the end, or not Gyarados, who had it? One of his henchmen had it, but Kip gets this knife back, and inside there is a message telling Kip to kill Gavin Guile because he was the man who raped her. So Kip is now torn between the man who he believes is his father, who he has grown to have much adoration for in this book, and his mother's last wish. The book ends with Gavin realizing that his time is running out as he has lost the ability to draft a certain color. Now, I know that was very minimalist with how much happens in this book, so I'll try to hit on some key moments here as I talk about what I like best about each character. First, Gavin, besides the fact that he's actually Dazen, to avoid confusion, I'm going to keep referring to him as Gavin here. He knows he only has about 5 years left to be Prism, since they only survive in increments of 7, and he's already currently at 16 years. So I'm curious to know what these 5 impossible goals he has are. He always talks about, he has 5 years to achieve 5 great things, and I want to know if they are a particular something that he has in mind, or if it's just that he wants to achieve great things when that moment calls for it. His mother is the second person who actually knows he is Dazen, and that makes it even more heartbreaking when he's the one who has to kill her in this whole freeing deal that they do, where people have used up their drafting abilities, or they become a danger to everyone around them and they have to be killed, and they make other people believe that we're doing you a favor. He also seems to genuinely care for Kip by the end, knowing that he isn't actually his father, and the real Gavin down in the prison is actually his father. And this just makes his situation with Karis quite tragic, because he truly does love her. With the real Dazen, the biggest nut punch in this book is seeing this dude finally escape from this 16-year hell, only to be just feet away from freedom, and he falls into a second prison of a different color, and we have to start all over. I would say he hasn't completely snapped, and how that's possible is just beyond me. But he is talking to what he calls a dead man, which is pretty much anytime you're in some kind of solitary, you're going to have the whole Wilson volleyball thing where you start projecting some kind of person there because it's just too much solitary confinement. But his story is just devastating so far. So I expected him to be out of this by the end of this book. So him basically being in a different prison now that's a different color, man, I don't know. He might spend most of the series struggling to get out of there. With Karis, I'm pretty sure she's figured it out at the end of the book. She tells Gavin, "I know your little secret." But as a reader, we aren't sure which secret. We see this from Kip's point of view, and he doesn't really hear the whole conversation. But I'm pretty sure she knows that he is actually Dazen, and that's going to cause some problems. With Kip, I think he may harbor some resentment towards Gavin, but he will eventually realize that his mother was a whack job who never gave a shit about him, and Gavin has shown him more kindness in a month than his mother did his whole life. So his power certainly seems to be growing, and I'm curious if he's going to get that in check or not, but I don't see him actually trying to kill Gavin. With Liv, her big heel turn at the end was kind of surprising. Since her father, she's basically turning against her father too. But if you actually listen to what Lord Omnichrome is saying, I get it. Killing people just because they've used all their magic to a certain point and making it sound like they're doing you a favor, I mean, that's quite a stretch. So there is definitely, certainly some gray going on in this book. The good guys aren't exactly good, and the bad guys, sometimes they have a point. With Iron Fist, I don't feel like he did a ton in this book. I thought he was going to be the red shirt in this one and kind of be the first POV character to pass away. But I don't feel like he did a ton in this book except be there for all the action sequences and to kind of, when Gavin couldn't be with Kip, he would be with Kip. But I see his role expanding more in the future. If I'm forgetting really what he did in this book, that's my fault. This was kind of forgettable. But I like him enough. With Corvin, I'm interested to see how he handles his daughter flipping sides. Now, he seems okay with it at the moment. He's like, oh, she's young. She's going to do what she's going to do. I don't think this is just they're kids. Kids will be kids kind of thing. But also I think the next time he sees her and she's fighting on the opposite side, things then might get a little muddy because, you can handle something until you actually see. Like if your ex starts dating one of your best friends, you think you're okay with it. And then the first time you see them together, it's like, So what happens to him when folks eventually find out that Gavin isn't Gavin? Could get quite complicated there. I think I already talked about who'd I leave out? I already talked about Karis. There's a lot of threads left for Karis, but she knows the truth about Dazen. I do want to know also with Karis is who she. I'm going off my notes here. She it mentions that she had a child out of wedlock and a bastard child that she gave up for adoption. Didn't even see the baby after it was born. Just pop, bye. And I don't think that Weeks would have brought that up if it wasn't coming back later in the story. So for sure we'll be finding out who that is. At once she even wonders if it could actually be Kip. So that would be an interesting little twist. But look, I absolutely love this book. Besides First Law, this is the best start to a fantasy series I've read in quite some time. And I wanted to pick up The Blinding Knife, that's book 2, right away. But with the last book coming out in October, I decided that I'm going to do like I'm doing with the First Law, and I'm going to read one book per month leading up to the release of the new one. So I'll be doing Blinding Knife in July, Broken Eye in August, Blood Mirror in September, leading up to the release of The Burning White on October the 22nd. So look for those reviews soon. And the best way to do that is to help me out by hitting that subscribe button. The channel is growing. We are slowly climbing towards that goal of 500 subscribers. I think I was almost at 400 when I started recording this. And if I get to 500, I can start to beat YouTube's horrible algorithm that won't allow my videos to show up in a basic search. So if you like this video, please subscribe. Check out the other content in the channel. I do a book review or a Let's Discuss segment every single week. Sometimes I do more if I'm reading more. And we do a live show here almost every week or every couple of weeks where we talk about everything relevant that happened in geek pop culture media over the last week. So please hit subscribe, share this with your friends, and I will talk with you guys soon.